We already looked at David's life and what was happening in chapter 24 with the crisis he was facing. But when you face a crisis, um, what are you tempted to count? Piggybacking off the story and looking at some of the things that happened leading up to the story, not just an isolated portion of chapter 24, but looking at all the things that were going on that David was going through. And this one particular thing, he kind of figured he would go out and number what he had. This is a man that killed a lion and a bear and slain Goliath and turned the Philistines back. But this is also a man that had a lot of trouble in his family and in his life and suffered many things because of his sinful nature. But at this particular point in his life, he's winding things down, and he did something very foolish. What did this cost him?
I mean, because there's a lot of that it costs.
Anyone else? When you do something wrong, do you always notice right off the bat that it's wrong? That you screwed up? No? No? Why?
Not paying attention. Thinking you did it right, but
All right. I mean, study everything, all right? Okay, I'll check it out for study. Excuse me. Okay, you don't always know what you're doing is wrong. Why is that? Why is that?
It's like it's almost like we hear a part of it. We don't hear everything,
Okay.
and then we think because we obey partially, it should be okay.
Okay.
Because he did obey partially. Because some of the people,
In our life, like David, what are the effects of wrongdoing? I mean, it's easy to look at the Bible and see what's printed here about David's poor life and screw up he made. I mean, how many people lost their life because of this census? How many? It's right there. How many people?
7,000.
70,000 people, y'all. That was a big blunder. That was a big blunder. Big blunder. 70,000 people lost their lives, and David said, what? What punishment did he choose? God gave him three punishments. What punishment did he choose?
That he and his father's house, he punishes wicked people.
He asked God to punish him and his household. Right? What did God come up with? What punishment did God come up with? Find it in there.
So from the punishment that or the church not decided that they could do.
How many days did God decide to punish Jacob
Well,
and Israel? Find a section on the punishments. David said, I'm greatly distressed. Please let us fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercies are great. Do not let me fall into the hands of a man. God sent who to talk to David? And Gad told him what?
make an outcome.
Somebody read verse 12. It's only 25 chapters, y'all. Somebody read verse 12.
Go and tell David, this is what the Lord says. I'm giving you three options. Choose one of them for me to carry out against you. So Gad went to David and said to him, shall there come on you 3 years of famine in your land, or 3 months of fleeing from your enemies while they pursue you, or 3 days of plague in your land? Now then, think it over and decide how I should answer the one who sent me.
Okay, think it over. Think it over. God did what? What did God choose? Out of those 3 punishments.
Pestilence upon his focus.
Cindy, please read verse 15.
So the Lord sent a plague on Israel from that morning until the end of the time designated. And 70,000 of the people from Dan to Beersheba died.
Okay, so God put the punishment in motion. Isn't that what the verse just said?
Yeah.
And what time did the punishment start?
Right then.
Okay, so death is coming. And these people are going to drop like flies. Now remember, before you start judging, you forgot what these 2 groups of people in Israel did to David. Okay, these very same people, if you go back a few chapters, rose up against him, took sides against him with his son. You know what I'm saying? So don't have sympathy. Don't think that God is being unjust in what he's doing here. These very same people deserve some of the things that not some of the things, all the things that God was getting ready to do to them, and 70,000 people lost their life. So as God was doing what he was doing in the process of what he was doing, what does the scripture say there in verse 16?
And when the angel stretched out his hand to destroy Jerusalem, the Lord relented concerning the disaster and said to the angel who was afflicting him, withdraw your hand. The angel of the Lord was then at the threshing floor of Aruna the Jebusite.
Okay, look at that picture. Go back to those 2 verses and look at that picture. What do you see from your perspective? Let me see if you guys are paying attention.
What's the first one?
This is the mercy of God. Okay? When you and I do something wrong and we get involved in wrongdoing. Understand this about God. And the New Testament talks about chastising. Remember, sin is against God's divine nature. Where does God live in the life of a Christian? Where does he live in the life of a Christian? Anybody else? Where's God living? Huh? In our being. God is templed here, right? So when we do wrong things, who's affected? David said, I didn't sin against me, I sinned against you. David recognized in his sinful action and in his wrongdoing, he sinned against God. Okay? So if God is uncomfortable with the wrongdoing and things that we're doing, don't you think God needs to wake us up? Didn't we all admit about doing wrong things? Sometimes we don't know that we're doing wrong things until we see the effects of it. Okay, and then we snap out of it and say, oh man, wow, I messed up. That's the first thing we say, I messed up. Okay, in the process of that, you messed up, God knows that. God is riding right there along with you, seeing you being self-destructive. Okay, so the righteousness of God has to do what for us? The Holy Spirit tells us, and he's there for us to make sure we don't do the things that we want to do. Always knocking on the door and saying, no, I don't think that's a good road for us to be traveling down. No, I don't think that's the right thing to say. No, I don't think that's the right reaction. Okay, God is always giving us a way out through the Holy Spirit. But sometimes we just venture right down that path, and wrongdoing gets us in trouble. God gave permission to be God. He didn't have to, but he gave permission to be God. So righteousness had to be brought down from heaven. Okay, David is going to suffer. He's absolutely right. His family is going to suffer. He's absolutely right. And the people that were involved in wrongdoing is going to suffer also. Okay, so God put that in motion, right? When God puts something in motion, it cannot stop unless God stops. So whatever he says must be done. So the angel started doing what God said do on the punishment. So he started going through Israel, taking out people who were guilty. Okay? Acting on God's plan. 70,000 people was more than that, but God did what? Okay? Look what David said in verse 17. What did David observe? Read the scripture. So just read the passage so we all can hear it and see it. Read what the passage says.
And David spoke up, and he saw the angel passing, and said, I have sinned. I have done what have they done? Let thine hand, I pray thee, against me.
Okay. David didn't see what God seen, right? No. Because David is in intercession for the people. Some might say, and we have said in this study, that David had that kind of heart because of the sinful nature that he committed in the sins that he committed. So David didn't see the wrongdoing of the people. Wrong. Moses was like that too. Moses just didn't want those people. I don't know why you brought me out here to die with these folks, but I mean, why are we going through this? God's seen a different picture. When they rebelled and everything against Moses and Aaron and God said there needs to be punishment for that. Okay, so we're never going to be on the side of God when it comes down to God's chastising in our life. Some of us don't like spanking, spiritual spanking. Some of us rebelled against God just like we did in physical times. Some of us didn't like to get hit. Some of us didn't think it was fair. Some Christians think it's not fair when God is trying to teach us through chastising us through the mistakes that we constantly make over and over again, that we don't need to be doing this, and this is not something we need in our life, because I can't get anything done if I'm constantly chastising you for things that you should know you shouldn't be doing. And that's just the way God sees it. So, we just need to, okay, all right, let's get it together and let's grow up. Question number 5 is that David chose to take his punishment straight from God rather than from men. Do you agree with his strategy? Why? You agreed with his strategy. Why?
Because you know what men will do to him.
Okay.
And he's better off for punishing him. He feel better with that punishment.
What is the difference between what man will do to you and what God will do to you? Knowing that God loves you.
I think that's the difference there, Lord, because he knows the relationship he has with God. God is merciful. He's not going to destroy David. He's not going to put more on him than he can bear. But David will understand God's route, whereas man, there's no limit to what man will do, right? Especially trying to destroy not only the body and the soul.
Okay. God will always relent. God is not to cut you off, correct? Okay, let's look at this from a financial picture. You hold a mortgage how many years? What is it? Just say the 3 mortgages that you hold. 30 years. For 30 years, you're going to pay that mortgage. What's going to happen to your life in those 30 years? Some of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of everything. You may be in and out of jobs. You may have health issues. You may have to move. Well, you have 30 years. You sat down and you signed on that dotted line that you was going to pay this mortgage for 30 years, 17 years, 10 years. In your mind, you thought everything was going to go all right, right? Cindy said no. Karen said yes. Donna said, yeah. I mean, you sat down, you kind of figured, hey, I can do this, right? Based on your income, your current income, your health, your peace of mind, your desire to have the home and want to buy the home, you kind of figure, hey, look, I can do this. All right? Okay. Something happened. Life just happens. Now what? Now what? Now you're struggling to hold on to something that you promised for 30 years. Okay? God said relieve a person's debt after how many years? 7. 7 years. God said relieve a person after their debt. And we go sign on the dotted line for 30.
We would never be able to afford 7.
You know what I'm saying? Everything about God said relieve the land. Don't farm the land after 7 years. Give the land a rest. We plow and plow and plow and plow and plow and throw seed and just beat the land up. God said bury your garbage. What do? We incinerate. Put all the toxic stuff that we eat and all the plastic and all that stuff into the air that we breathe. Our Father knows best. We do the total opposite. Who suffers? We do. God doesn't suffer because where God is, everything is perfect. We suffer when we just go against the basic principles of God, when God is trying to get us to understand to live better and do better in our life. God is merciful. Although we mess up, God is always there doing like this, stretching his hands out, saying, I'm the Father, I can take care. No matter how much we mess up, as long as we're in this flesh, God is going to be merciful to us. David knew that God would not overload him. That's why he chose God over man. All the things that I just described to you are stressful things. If God gave you a mortgage, how much you think your mortgage would be if God charged you for your mortgage? You think it'd be 30 years? What do you think about depression and anxiety? You think that God will give you a job that's going to keep you tensed up? Was Adam tensed up? Did Adam hate the next day coming? Some of us hate going to our jobs, right? You think God would employ us and be our employer and let us go through things like that? No. We choose certain things in our life where natural spiritual laws must take effect because that's what we chose by not being patient with God, understanding that God is merciful. God will take care of us. God is not going to. Now, I'm not telling you, I understand personally that there are some things that God give us in moderation to prepare us for the things that he's going to take care of us on the other side there, a little later on. I understand that. But I want what I want when I want it, and I want it now. And I want it as big as I possibly can get it, and as glorious as I can possibly get it. And I want it while I'm young. I don't want it when I'm old. I don't have those kind of desires when I get old. But I want it now. I want it at 30 years old. I want it. I definitely want it by the time I get 40. But what is that doing with my relationship and God's relationship? For 40 years. 20 years building his house, 20 years building the temple. Solomon did what with those people? All that grandeur. He gets to the end and says what? This is a mess. This is a mess. You see what we're saying? You see what I'm trying, the point that I'm trying to make is that David understood through all the things that he was going through, that every time he went through those things, God relented, he was merciful, and he did not overload him with the problems that he brought into his life. Although God said the sword will never leave your house, guess what? God didn't take his house out, completely out, because of the pathway to Jesus. So just think about it. Think about all the times when you made mistakes, God brought you through. And think about the times that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes. But understand this about your relationship with God, that God is going to take care of some things. So you need to choose him. You need to choose him even in discipline. If when God is chastising you, don't say, why me? Say, Lord, I know I shouldn't have did that. Let's just get this over with. There are some children that face their parents and say, Mom, you're right. Dad, you're right. Not many of us, but I was wrong. Let's just get this over with. And you probably get a more merciful parent than you will if you're lying. Because your parents know you're lying, and they're going to hit you extra for lying. A lot of us didn't realize that, right? We didn't know that extra hit that we got was because we were lying and we got caught in the lie. You say, Mom, yeah, you're right. Dad, you're right. I did it. I made a bad decision. I deserve the punishment that goes along with that. And just accept the punishment. That's all that is. But David knew. Number 6, in what ways has God been a rock and fortress in your life? In your life. Now, God has done many, many things in your life. And you're sitting here today in the condition that you're in, no matter what condition you're in, because God has been a fortress in your life. And he still is, right? Still is. Battle after battle, blessing after blessing. And then what again? Battle after battle. As long as we're in this fleshly tent, God is going to be a fortress in our life. And he has to be, for Satan will destroy us. We cannot handle the stresses of life without God. And the only thing you got to do is look at those of us who are outside Christianity, those of us who have lost our faith, where we don't believe this. Look how things are going. Things are going. I tell you all the time, simply because it's true, brothers and sisters. Mental illness, stress, anxiety is just as much painful as a physical organ disease. Whatever else I can come up with when it's medical conditions. It's just as bad. It hurts just as bad. And a lot of us are in denial. We just deny that we are having emotional problems and it hurts. We're in denial. And that's why we are the way we are. We won't get the proper help. We won't stay constantly in prayer. we won't find the right medication that will help us out and keep us mainstream. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And that's why, those kinds of things in this spiritual world, when Jesus was in his ministry, he paid close attention to and touching people because people weren't who they were. They weren't who they were designed to be. And to not be able to control yourself and have control daily over things that are just normal things is very painful. And those of us that have been in this room that have been there and done that know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you've been down that road where, man, you put your hands on your cheek and you sit down in that room and you can't even come up with the best thought if someone shook it out of you. If you've been there, you've done that, you know what I'm talking about.
What was the question?
In what ways have God been a rock and a fortress in your life?
Well, I'll say one thing is, for me, is the way I try to get through life is bad things are going to happen. And also when you're in the middle of a bad thing, worrying about it won't make it better. So to me, one of the parts of God that I don't think I tap into enough or people tap into enough is that peace that passes all understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Like just calming yourself down, even if, let's just say, whatever you're asking for specifically, even if God said no to that, but just calming down will be the blessing, right? Because if he said no, it's no regardless. But most of the time he says yes when we're in that time of need, right? So Jesus said, you seek first, and anything you ask my Father he'll do. So just that ability to calm down, which can be the form of somebody talking to us or prayer or scripture or a combination, to me, that's a big deal. Because when you act out of emotion, you have the tendency to make the bad or wrong decision. I think a lot of us act out of emotion, and later on or the next day or later, we look back and say that wasn't the best thing. So just calming down and using God as a foundational piece for peace in your life, to me, is a big deal for getting through things. Because things going to happen regardless. So if something is happening to a group of people and everybody is panicking, but if one or two persons aren't, it can help calm the group down. But everyone panicking isn't making the situation any better. And I think as Christians daily, I don't know how often we tap into that, because sometimes you'll go through a period of your life where every day, week, month, there seems like there's something. To me, when that starts happening to you, it's even better to calm down. Because like if you see a pattern of things happening, it could be for a variety of reasons. So being frustrated or riled up about it isn't going to make the situation any better, right? So like, I think we have the tendency to complain when, to me, that energy should be towards prayer. It's like complaining. They say complaining doesn't pay any bills, right? So like complaining about the situation isn't going to make any better. And then if you say, okay, what's a biblical reference to that to strengthen that argument? Think about when Peter, when they were arrested, right? And they were singing, right? Like most of us, if we were in that situation and we didn't do anything wrong, we would be upset. But they were singing because they were passing the time, right? So like, I feel like even little things, right? Like if the power goes out, looking back, it's good to be like, oh, we should have been singing song. I can promise you at that time we weren't singing, right? But we don't know when the power is going to come back. So it's like us sitting up wishing the power was back on, not going to change the fact that we're in darkness. So what can we do about our situation? I think that's a lot of what God is able to do for us that I don't know how much humanity tap into. So I try to do better with that, just to say, yes, you can always answer with something that God will do for you. Great. But like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's point was, even if he says no, we're still calm about it. Like they weren't riled up. They weren't yelling and screaming. They basically were like, just do whatever you would do. I feel like if even in the last 7 days, if I did that more, I would have peace. And I think that's what Jesus was saying, that he came to bring life more abundantly, to live different, because God doesn't react to things the way we do. So like, that's one of those things where something is going awry in your life, just slow yourself down and let God bring your your attitude, your conscience, everything down, right? Bring yourself down to peace, and then to me, you'll be able to see God in the whisper, like the Bible.
Okay. Good analogy. When the lights go out, it's dark, right? What are some of the first things you should be thinking about? You don't need to ask what happened to the lights, the power's out. Okay. What are some things that you need to start thinking about to start making living in darkness better? You want to get some light, right? Because you don't want to thump your toes. So you want to get the candles out, get the flashlights out, start illuminating your walk space, right? Okay. You want to get some light in. Nobody want to live in darkness. Okay. Then you start planning what I'm going to do if these lights stay off for 24 hours. I'm going to drive somewhere and get something to eat. I can't refrigerate it, so it's going to be fast. If you got a gas grill, can I cook? There are a lot of positive things about darkness that you can overcome just by thinking things through, right? Instead of complaining about it, getting mad about it, yelling at the light company who's probably going to call 15, 20 emergency crew members to get up and go do what they got to do to get you lights back. That ain't happening in the next minute, right? So you already know something has to be done. Who's in control of that? The light company or you? You are. Okay, the light company gonna get you lights when they get you lights. Okay, that's just the way that is. You're gonna call, you're gonna yell, you're gonna scream, you're gonna get a recording because they definitely gonna have no live person on if it's dark. And if you live in Seymour, where we live at, get used to it. Get used to it. Okay. The heart to be fine. I'm gonna be all right. Tell yourself that. Calm down. Don't speak. Listen to the Lord. A lot of times when we start the yelling and screaming and the overreacting, we lose our sensibility of trying to figure things out, correct? It takes a while before we can get our peace of mind back. Listen to the Lord. God loves to talk with us when we what? Can't handle things. Why? That's when we listen. My grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in what? Weakness. Okay? Pray intently in the spirit. Talk to God. Talk to him. That's the best thing for you to do is talk to him. You put on your oxygen mask on the plane. Why?
I haven't thought about the free. Save yourself.
Save yourself first. You trying to do something with the kids. Grabbed it. What did the stewardess say before when you was taxiing out? When the mask dropped, put the mask on your face first. Then assist the person to the left or to the right. If you don't put the mask on and you lose the oxygen that you're trying to gain where there is no oxygen in trying to help somebody out, now you got what? Two losses. And you went against safety, policy, and regulation. So now 2 people just lost oxygen. You're 35,000 feet in the air. It is so cold outside that if something happens to you on Southwest Airline, when that lady got sucked out of that portal, she didn't feel that. She didn't feel that. She was 30-some thousand feet in the air. Have you ever flew on a plane? Well, if you fly on Air Emirates, you get the outside temperature right there in front of you on the mountain. You won't last. You will not last. Your lungs, you couldn't even inhale. So, okay, you're gone already. A lot of people say when something happened to you in an air disaster, you have nowhere else but to go up. For Christians, that's true. So ain't no need of you worrying about that. Now, there is no oxygen in the plane at that altitude. Don't you know that the cabin is being filled with oxygen for you at that altitude? You think that the cabin is just naturally oxygenized? No. That's why they want you to put your mask on first. If everybody follows simple instructions, we can save the people that are following their instructions, right? You don't follow the instructions, oops. We're going to have some casualties. We're going to have some losses. So think things through. They're not just sitting there because they have nothing else to do. As flight attendants just to be saying something for a couple of minutes that don't make no sense. Something may happen. Put on your seatbelt. I don't want to wear a seatbelt. It's very uncomfortable. What if you drop 5,000 feet? You drop 5,000 feet and you don't have a seatbelt on, and the only maneuver the pilot can do to catch air in those turbines that are flying you around is to tilt that plane left or right. Where you think you're going without a seatbelt? You're going out in the aisle. You know what's out in the aisle? Armrests to the chairs, metal things in the plane. Your body will not sustain that. They're just trying to get you to see simple instruction. I get on the plane, I do not take my seatbelt off. When he say take it off, I'm still strapped in. You know, you just gotta follow the rules and follow and pay attention. Things are going to happen in life, but God, He's a fortress. He sent things right out there for us was to do like this, because things are going to happen. We make things worse by not paying attention. Karen?
Yes, I know we're all talking about the power outage, and it's funny how different perspective, because I'm from Jamaica, and the power goes out maybe once a week. It's like no big deal. So we're always prepared. So there's always a lantern somewhere, there's always a flashlight somewhere, there's always candles somewhere, and everybody knows exactly where it is. We know exactly what we're going to eat. There's always tin food there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So for us here, whenever the power goes out, it's exciting. It's like being back home. And we actually enjoy it, because it's like reminding us of being back home, except we do not have the lanterns that they had, the ones with the oil in it.
Yeah, kerosene.
The kerosene oil, exactly.
Yeah.
And we always inhale it and all that stuff. You know what I'm talking about? Oh, yeah. So for us, it's very exciting because we're so sophisticated now. We have all these fancy candles and all this fancy stuff, you know. Mm-hmm. But we think it's just exciting. So, and people here think it's a big disaster. We're like, are you kidding me? Like, really?
Yeah. Rural areas and people from the South know exactly what you're talking about. We grew up on lanterns. We grew up on kerosene. And we knew, and if you lived out, you didn't have electricity anyway.
Exactly.
You lived out in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. Once you got off that city grid, you had well water. And if you guys didn't have electric pump, you physically pumped that water up. You know, so that means you went out several times a day to get water. Now, you move into the city, you get lazy and comfortable because everything is off a switch now. So down south in Florida, you know, Florida have hurricanes often. Florida have strong storms often. And those storms will take power out in grids. Okay, so people are used to that. People from the Caribbean, they're used to that. That's not a big deal to them. So they're always prepared. Folks like my wife that's from Bridgeport, and that's city life is all she ever knew. She want her light switch to work. Period. And she's not comfortable at all, you know, roughing it. For some people, that's just the way things are. That's just the way we were raised. Simple as that, Ellis.
And if we use that like as an example in terms of preparation, so spiritually being prepared is something that all of us need to work on, because you already know bad things are coming. This is why Christians shouldn't be caught off guard, right? Like Jesus told the disciples that they would be persecuted and bad times would happen, but be of good cheer because he already overcame the world, right? Yeah. So if you think of like financial crisis, right? Several years ago when there was a bad economy, people who were poor, that didn't impact them as much, because when you don't have, you already know what it's like to not have, right? So you just say, oh, I just don't have it yet. But people who never went without, that impacted them because you had people who never knew what it was like to be unemployed. So therefore, they didn't know what to do. The world, that's how it should be. When bad things happen, the world shouldn't know what to do. I don't know this thing. But Christians shouldn't be caught off guard when bad things happen, because we constantly think about good and bad things happening. Like, we already know the end of this movie, but we don't prepare for the bad things. So like when bad things happen in our lives, whether it's family or something, it catches us off guard just like it catches the world off guard, right? So like we have to be more prepared in the good times so that when bad things happen, we already have our lanterns and these things because we say, oh, this is a routine. I remember last month the power went out, so let me be ready. I remember last year I didn't have a job. I remember 2 months ago a loved one was in the hospital. But like when bad things happen, we can't be like the world looking at God saying, hey, why did this happen to me? We already know bad things happen because of sin in this world. We know that already, right? Like, so we shouldn't be caught off guard. The other thing is when you act a certain way and you're more in tune with what God would have you be, your friends and family, that's a testimony to them.
Yep.
That's the part that we miss. Like when we don't fly off the handle, that's a testimony to everyone around you because the other people are thinking, oh, I would have flew off the handle. So sometimes we miss evangelistic moments because we act like everybody else. I don't want to go to church with you when you act like everyone else. I want to go wherever you're going if I see a difference, right? That's when we talk about physical or with the gym or financial, right? I'll listen to financial advice when somebody have more money than me. But sorry, somebody who have less money than me, I'm not going to listen to financial advice from you, even if it's good advice, because you know what I'm going to say? How come you don't take that advice yourself? Yeah. So like from a spiritual standpoint, we don't think of it that way. But sometimes people are looking at us like, if God is so good, how come you don't take him up on his offer? You want me to be saved. How come you not acting like the way you're saying? I think those are the moments that we miss, that God is saying, if you just put your mask on, if you just worked on being a better person, wow, like I can do so much around you, but you won't be a better person. That's why it's hard for my spirit to convert those people around you because they don't see any different than the way you react to things and the way they react to things. So there's no antidote. There's nothing that they see in your life that they would want to be a part of. That's like the blind leading the blind. We both end up in the ditch. That's why I say all the time, if we focus more on personality change, all of us have a loved one in our life. We're like, oh, I wish this person would be saved. I guarantee you, if you interact with that person different than the way you have been interacting, different, a 180, that would be more effective than you trying to force that person to change, because that person already know when you're coming because you've been acting like that with them for years. But if you act like that out of love, like Jesus, that person will say, oh, wow, this is different. I don't know how to respond. So if you and that person always arguing, tell them, oh, I love you. The person is so ready to argue, you just diffuse the argument because you just say, oh, yeah, I love you. I can't argue with somebody saying I love you. What I'm going to keep saying, right? But when you arguing back with me, that's the world's forte. The world like arguing. So as Christians, even in that with family issues, why are we arguing back? They're waiting to argue. Family love arguing, especially family. Forget the world. Family love arguing with you. Tell those people, oh, I love you, and leave it at that. But we can't. We have pride. We thinking of something they did 3 years ago. Now I'm going to get back at you. That's how the world acts, though. If we act different, people will see Christ in us. But it's so hard to do that, especially with loved ones, because we know them and they know us. But if we acted completely different than the way people expect it in our everyday life, to me, we would see greater results.
Good point. I mean, what's going to happen? Either people are going to take your advice or not. And if they don't take your advice, what's going to happen?
Not going to hurt you.
Right, honestly. I mean, and you're going to get hot and bothered and worked up because your daughter did what? Or your son did what? Or your brother did what? Yes, it's going to affect you as a family member in some kind of way, but guess what? They're not going to listen to you anyway. Haven't you had previous experience with your siblings and with your kids? You already know what the outcome is going to be, right? Doesn't God act that way? God already knows what the outcome is going to be. God is just trying to get us from what? Having tears run down our eyes. He already knows what's going to happen. That's why he's merciful. He has to come to the aid to help us get our heart back. Okay? So just understand that, all right? All right. we'll start our next series. I'll put it in the bulletin and give everybody a call out. How do you like the Flex series, Karen?
Oh, I was just gonna make a statement before
Okay,
you
go
ask a
ahead.
question. What Ellis is talking about, and what we're all talking about tonight, is extremely hard, and that's the honest truth. And I go through it all the time. You know, I go through different changes, and to be able to be okay, genuinely okay, even with the world falling apart. So I have this motto that even if you ask me how am I, I'm okay. Even if I'm on my last breath, I'm okay. You know, because after a while, it takes a lot of maturity and strength to get to this point, and a lot of people aren't there because I don't know why, but it's very difficult because to know that everything is not okay, and yet you have to make it okay. You know what I mean? So even when the world is falling apart, I've lost job, I've lost house, I mean, so many things have happened in life. You know, the more you keep on living, the more things are going to happen. And then in all of that, you have to actually be able to turn around and still thank God, still praise God, still go to church, still, you know, still live and be happy about it. You know what I mean? And it's very difficult. And what you're talking about, mental illness, stress is one of the main killers of all of us because we don't know how to handle it. You know, so we have to get to the point where we know that God is going to take care of us regardless of what happened. Even if you have to move, even if you have to get a different job, it's not the end of the world. The world still goes on. You know what I mean? You still wake up the next morning. So we have to remember that, but it's extremely difficult.
What does Luke 10:6 says? Can someone read that? Luke 10:6. Jesus wants us to surround ourselves with people of peace. Why do you think he wants us to do that? So what? So what will happen to what? What does it say? Luke 10:6.
And if the Son of Peace be there, your peace shall rest upon it. If not, it shall turn you to your death.
The Son of Peace is there. You know by the reaction from other people that the peace of the Lord is not in their life, correct? I said other people, I mean church people too. When you see people with unrest, do yourself a favor. Do yourself a favor. Or don't. Or don't. Don't take God's advice. Did Jesus hang out with the Pharisees? Why? Why do you think Jesus didn't hang out with the Pharisees? Jesus could have been at that synagogue, each one of them synagogues every day. Matter of fact, for 7 days, that's all he could have did was synagogue hop. Right on to Jerusalem, to the main temple, and then start synagogue hopping again. What do you think that would have done to his life and his mission and his ministry every single day?
They're only out to try to trip him up and ask him questions and badger him.
Right. And didn't that affect Jesus? Didn't confrontation affect Jesus? Amen. Didn't Jesus go off on them people? You think that didn't affect him? How would you like somebody to call you the son of a devil and doing the work of the devil when you know you're the son of God? Out of all the things that they said about you, let's just take the miracles and throw them aside. Just take the healings and stuff and throw them aside. The fact that you know you're the son of God and they call you the son of your God's enemy, your father's enemy, you think that's more than a slap in the face? You think that didn't bother Jesus? Of course it did. You think Jesus is going to hang around people that call him a devil? Would you hang around somebody that call you a devil every time they see you? No. Hang around with people of peace, brothers and sisters, and you'll be all right. You'll be all right. Okay? All right.